and today we'll be looking at Bigfoot sightings in East Texas. Joseph Hill, a viewer, has asked me to do this, and we'll gladly cover East Texas. And I had no idea that there would be so many clusters in the eastern part of the state. And we'll break this into three parts, 3 episodes to cover Texas. So we'll get right to it. And what we'll do is today I've changed the map up a little bit. I've changed the base map to streets at night, so it's and it contrasts quite well with the yellow points, which are the Bigfoot sightings. And we have the national parks and forests and the state parks and forests, regional parks, county, and local parks in green. And I haven't really looked at this in any detail, so we'll get right into it, and we'll see what we find. We'll flip back and forth between the GIS map, the ArcGIS Pro, and the BFRO, the Bigfoot Research Organization sightings by county. So as you can see, wow, there's a cluster around this park here. Just north of Houston. Sam Houston National Forest. So yeah, quite a cluster in this park, just north of Montgomery. I had no idea that there'd be so many in Texas. So we have Class A sightings and Class B sightings. Class A, the visual sightings. Class B would be evidence to support the fact that there would be a Bigfoot or a Yeti or Sasquatch or skunk ape. It would be footprints, vocalizations, wood knocks, or any other evidence. So let's have a look down here. There's a couple. So April 2002, hiker has daytime encounter in Sam Houston National Forest. So we're going to flip back to the BFRO website, and that was April 2002 in as you can see, there's 16 reports in Montgomery. That's quite a lot. That's more than I think I've ever seen so far doing these reports. April 2002. Me and my family have moved to the Montgomery County area in October of 2001. In December, I had noticed an old logging road leaving the Sam Houston National Forest from the subdivision, which was still under development at the time. I haven't hiked since I was a teenager, so I decided to see where the road went when weather permitted. In April 2002, I had taken some vacation time from work. One afternoon after moving, I thought I would go for a walk, a routine I continued for several days, going further down the road and deeper into the woods with each trek. I had seen evidence of deer, hog, squirrel, and even bear in the area. On the 6th day, I walked by an area that had springs on both sides of the trail, which alternated sides every so often. I noticed on this trip there was no animal sounds or activity, and I felt watched. So I stopped and surveyed my surroundings, and to the east of me, about 25 yards in the thicket underbrush, something quite robust in size and dark in color seemed to be crouched between a couple of trees, looking in my direction. I thought it was a large hog or maybe a bear, so I turned south, heading towards home, and this creature moved along with me, keeping a distance of approximately 15 to 30 yards between us at all times. We continued this kind of cat and mouse routine for about 20 to 25 minutes. I had stopped to relieve myself. Then suddenly, I don't know what possessed me to turn into the woods towards this creature. It stopped and crouched very low at the ground and remained perfectly still. I had gotten into about 10 yards, and I got wind of a strange odor I can't describe. I heard a low, guttural growl coming from the creature's area. I could see that it was very dark in color and almost lying in a prone position, much like a sniper lining up a shot, and human-like legs, only very hairy. I could make out thick arms and shoulders, also covered with thick hair, probably no more than 1 to 2 inches in length. It was down almost as if it was trying to hide its face. I would estimate it to be no more than 6 feet tall. The hair on my neck stood up when I heard movement of something large moving from across the trail behind me. I moved quickly back onto the trail, and it seemed I wasn't being followed, so I slowed my pace. But this time I was about 100 to 125 yards from the point I had urinated. I turned and I saw this dark figure walk upright out of the east woods, and stop at my puddle area as it squatted for a few seconds, then stood up and looked directly at me for a few more seconds. Its head turned abruptly towards the west woods, and much larger dark being came slightly into view. They both watched me as I backpedaled, watching them for another dozen or so yards. When I decided home was the best place to be, and ran off. Wow. So this person saw two of these creatures in this forest. Over the next 3 years of living in that area, I would often feel being watched when I was outdoors. Loud crashing sounds from the woods. Times of no animal activity at all. My dogs growling, fearful towards the woods, occasionally chattering and screams. Foul odors, sticks and debris coming from the woods, and even eye shine on one evening from 8 feet from the ground. Neighbor at the time said she heard grunts and groans some nights, and a dog would shake. So, yeah, quite an encounter there. Very interesting. There's another sighting not too far away from each other. Not far at all. Let's measure to see how far this distance is. So 4,700 yards. That's assuming these points are perfectly mapped. We have an issue in the previous episode where the point was like a fair distance away from where it should have been, like almost an entire state. And we had that in the Ontario video too, where North Bay and Thunder Bay was getting mixed up, and that's, several hundred kilometers difference. So these points are not always perfectly GPSed, so take it with a grain of salt. But in this case, it was in the state forest. So okay, so July 2003, while riding a horse, a man has midday sighting. July 2003. Don't see that one. Seems to be missing something, unless I'm in the wrong county. I might have been over. No, it's in the same county, but yeah, that one's not there. Here's a couple over in Walker County. Class A. 1975. While rowing a boat across a lake in Huntsville Park, witness saw a dark animal in the form of a man. Okay, so July 1975, Walker County. My family and I had gone to Huntsville State Park, like we always had done every summer. My aunt and my nephew, who happens to be close to the same age as me, told me he wanted to take me out to a neat place that he had been earlier with his other family members. He said they found it while fishing, and that they caught a lot of fish there. So we got in the rowboat and started paddling across the lake to the other side. We were almost to the other side when I remember him saying something about, once we get into the trail, we will have to go all the way through. There was no way to turn around. Right after that, we started to turn into the trail. All of a sudden, it seemed like every bird in the wood decided to fly away. I remember smiling, looking up at them. Then as I was turning my head, as I was turning my face back down towards the shoreline, something caught the left-hand corner of my eye. It was an animal in form of a man, all dark-haired, blackish or dark brown. It was running away from us to the left. It ran so fast with those long strides. It ran like a man, arms in the same position a man runs like, not hanging to his sides but in a jogging position. The thing that I still remember so clearly is its eyes. I saw the fear in its eyes. It was so scared. I still see the whites of its eyes so clearly in my mind. While it was running, it was looking back at us. Meanwhile, while all this was going on, I proceeded to flip out completely. As soon as my eye caught the creature, I started screaming hysterically. My nephew asked what was wrong, and I told him through my sobs. I proceeded to paddle that boat as fast as I could away. I remember my nephew commenting on how fast I was paddling. He thought it was funny. He apparently didn't see what I had seen. I was totally hysterical. I've never been out of it like that before or since. I was so scared. I just wanted to be away from there. While we were paddling back, my nephew looked back and he saw a whole bunch of them, and they were splashing around in the water. That only freaked me out more, and I was paddling faster. Sorry to say, I don't know to this day if he was joking with me or not. But my instinct tells me he was, because he would have been scared like I was if he saw what I saw. Wow. So, yeah, very good. And again, that was just north of Montgomery County and Walker County. Looks like County Road 40, 45. Some kind of Highway 45. Okay. Very interesting. And we'll continue again with part 2 and part 3 of these series. Please subscribe to the channel and like the video. Thank you. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of GIS Answers. This is part 2 of the analysis of Texas Bigfoot sightings. Where we left off was we were looking at some sightings here just south of Huntsville along Highway 45, just north of Houston. And we were looking in this national park, this national forest, and there was a cluster of points around this national park, the Sam Houston National Forest, and I believe there's some other parks that are attached to this forest, and there's a big cluster of points around this, so it's quite fascinating, really. So we'll move on, and in the white we have, in the yellow, sorry, we have the Bigfoot sightings. And while we're looking at this area over here, I did notice these cluster of points that are, they're quite linear, and they follow the series of parks that are in the green, and they also follow this watercourse this river. So there's a river that flows from the Big Caney Creek, flows north and into a series of parks, and that cluster follows that river, which is quite interesting, all the way up to the Trinity River National Wildlife Refuge. And then there's a Davis Hill State Park. So quite fascinating to see the spatial pattern that is created here with these sightings. I mean, it's not like these sightings are randomly spaced across the state. There's a huge cluster on the, a wide cluster on the east side of Texas, Dallas being up here in the north, and Houston down in the south. And we looked at Montgomery County and Walker County last time. So we're going to be looking at Liberty County to start with. So we'll start in the north. It's a Class A sighting. And May 2004, while driving between Trinity River and Cleveland, a couple has a morning road cross encounter. So it looks like this highway 787 in Liberty County, May 2004. As a son of residents of Liberty County, I'm reporting a possible encounter for my parents. Not clearly remembering which day, but it was early May when my parents seen something strange. As they were traveling west from Romare towards Cleveland on FM 787, they seen a large creature run swiftly across the highway into the woods. It was the morning, about 9 a.m., when a huge brownish red-haired creature crossed 70 yards in front of them. As quickly as it happened, my father said it moved in a swift, leaping motion. It had huge long arms, which one arm hit the ground to help the other. It had a wide, slouching, pear-shaped body with long legs. Its fur or hair was brownish red, like very dark and old dead pine needles. However, it was too far to describe or to see its face. Describing the location of the encounter, it was 4 miles west of Trinity River. It was just a half a mile past Rayburn town sign, near a 100-yard stretch of woods and a pine line trail. It was crossing from the north through the woods to the south, which seems to be a pipeline trail that leads to Highway 105. Not being sure on what they had saw, and being in a hurry, had only made them slow down and look down the trail. However, there was no trace of it as they passed by. The next day, I came over to visit, and I remembered them telling me they had seen something cross them in Rayburn. They've told me many family friends, and every time the story has been very accurate. However, I haven't seen anything like that. So that's a good story. Liberty County, just east of Cleveland in Texas. This must be Trinity River, I'm assuming. This is the, like I talked about before, the linear pattern of these sightings along this river. Quite fascinating. Here's one right on the river. May 2004. Man sees an upright creature jump across wooded trail. Interesting. Okay, let's flip back again. May 2004. My wife and I were crossing the Trinity River on 105 just before sunset, May 29th, 2004, after having been to a Cardinals-Astros baseball game. The west bank of the Trinity was a long sandbar, and there were a few people spread out along the sandbar doing various things. There were a few kids and a dad camping, 2 guys sitting on the tailgate, a couple farther down fishing, and there was another truck backed up by the sandbar with its stereo playing. My wife and I drove down to the sandbar, had to engage the 4-wheel drive to avoid getting stuck, and turned around to go back to the highway, Highway 105. We got back out on the highway, and my wife asked me to drive across the bridge to the other side. I did so. My wife saw what she called a waterfall off to the left side of the bridge. Actually, it was just water running over rocks in a small creek off Trinity. We turned off on a dirt road just past the bridge, drove over a small wooden bridge over my wife's waterfall, and came to a gate that was locked with 2 padlocks. Keep in mind that this area is very heavily wooded, swampy, and marshy in areas, and highly inhospitable once you step into the woods. At the gate, we got out of the truck. We climbed the gate just to look around the area. We could hear the music and the kids playing across the river, probably a quarter mile back across the bridge. On the other side of the gate, the road turned into a 2-track trail. There had been vehicles down there probably within the last month. We walked down the trail. The sun was setting, and it started to get dark. This was very impromptu, and we had not planned this jaunt at all. My wife had heels on. I walked ahead, probably 30 feet ahead of my wife. There was a sign that indicated that this area was private, was a private hunting area. We were very quiet and made very little sound. It was then that I saw it, about 40 yards up the trail, where the trail turned sharply to the left. It leapt across the trail much like a long jumper, landed on the right side of the trail, and leapt again into the woods, quietly, in the blink of an eye. It was a rusty red color, about 6 feet tall, and was extremely fast. In an instant, my mind tried to ascertain what it was that I had saw. I kept telling myself, no way, but my data banks could not process it or link it to any other creature that I'd ever seen. I saw no face, and I do not remember seeing any arms or feet, but I did see an upright something about 6 feet tall leap 10 feet across the trail and spring into the woods. I turned to whisper loudly to my wife, "Did you see that?" No. She was busy dealing with a slimy, slithery something that slithered across her foot. She was quite distraught, and her encounter happened exactly the second that mine did. When she realized what had happened, she quickly jogged up to me, and we jogged to spot the crossing. When we arrived at the crossing, we could hear the animal still running away through the woods, sending birds to flight in its path. It was then that I smelled a musky smell, much like a horse, actually. We looked for tracks of any nature and found absolutely nothing. The creature cleared the road, and the road was the only place that tracks could have been made. We turned to look to the left, and there in the woods was a clump of uprooted trees, with fresh sod still on the roots, as though it had recently been put there. I'm sorry, but I can't say with certainty what I saw was Bigfoot, but I can say with certainty that what I saw was rusty red, approximately 6 feet in height, incredibly fast, appeared to be bipedal and upright, not a deer, coyote, cat, horse, human, fox, bear, wolf, hog, dog, or any indigenous animal that I have ever seen in Texas. I was raised in the backwoods of east and central Texas. We had no cameras with us, but even if we had, the creature was way out of sight before I could have drawn any camera, and he was way too fast for any hope of pursuit. Wow, very good. Very similar to the first one we looked at. So, yeah. So that was Highway 105. The other one was 787. Along the same River. Here's another one. Let's have a look. There's these Class A sightings too. This one seems to be just on the edge of a town. This would be Kennefleck in Liberty County. April 2003, mother and son endure frightening road encounter with a hairy man-like being. Okay, so Liberty County again. April 2003, my son and I was driving down FM 1008 Kennefleck, heading towards our road, Highway 321. It was about 11 p.m. I was driving around a curve, and there it was. His face was as tall as the speeding sign that he was standing next to, as if he was crossing the road. If I was 20 seconds later, I would have hit a man. That hair covering his whole body, except I could see his mouth and nose with no hair. The eyes were pretty clear of any facial hair also. He looked upset, clearly not what it was that my son and I saw. Clearly not sure what it was that my son and I saw, but it was a man-like being that was as tall as the street sign. My headlights reflected off the sign as this thing turned his face to see us, and we see him. It was practically in my windshield. I would have hit him if I had not swerved. So 2 witnesses. Okay, and it's in the Trinity River area, 1008, or it'll be 1008. Not sure how close this is to the actual, this point is actually accurate. And this is part of the Trinity National Wildlife Refuge. So along this Trinity River, interesting, so interesting. Here's another one down by Day Lake, which probably it looks like it flows into maybe part of this Trinity River system. December 1993, squirrel hunter has pre-dusk close encounter in Linney Creek. So this looks like Linney Creek might flow into the Trinity River. Okay, December 1993. Nearest town is Dayton, Highway 1008. I was squirrel hunting on my grandmother's property. This is around 2.5 miles east of Dayton, Texas. I just walked in a clearing about 14 by 30 feet, surrounded by dense foliage. I had a New England single-shot 12-gauge with me. I was looking up in the trees for any sign of squirrels when I caught movement out of the corner of my right eye. I looked down, and to the front of me saw, standing about 15 feet away, a very large creature. It was about 6 feet 7 inches to 7 feet tall, very broad-shouldered, very hairy except for the face. The face was devoid of hair. Cool black eyes, wide nose, very long arms, and big hands. It was like I had surprised it. We stared at each other for about 10 seconds when I cocked my 12-gauge. At that time, it turned to its right and disappeared very quickly. It was getting to be dusk, but I did not look for tracks and found none. But I did look for tracks and I found none. There was no smell. I hunted at that location quite often and know the surroundings. That day there were no birds, squirrels, or any sign of wildlife whatsoever. It started to get darker, so I went home. Other stories. Numerous accounts in this area, both family and friends who've seen or heard strange things. Each person has their own account of these encounters, which include sightings, unusually large footprints in the near creek bottom, strong smells, comfortable feelings of being watched and stalked. Makes the hair stand up on the back of your neck. Wow. Quite similar, similar descriptions, some people in this area. Here's another one just south of Kennefleck. 1990. I don't know if we'll have this, but anyway, in the BR4O database, it's 3 motorists have nighttime road encounter near Kennefleck. Yeah, that one's not listed. Not that I could see anyway. We'll move on. There's one down there in Chambers. That might be Chambers County. Well, riding bicycle teenager has afternoon close encounter not far from Trinity River. August 1983. August 1983. Here we go. It's just on the edge of the county. Summer. The area was back in the woodland acres off FM 1409. It was off of Magnolia Lane, one of the last roads in the subdivision. Let's have a look, see how accurate this is. Magnolia Lane, there you go. So this point is quite accurate. I mean, you can see maybe this is, maybe it was just at the edge of this subdivision. Very good. First off, I was a young boy when this happened, so please forgive some of my memory errors. I was riding my bike in the woods and got home on a trail. I could feel something watching or following me. I raced out of the woods to a better trail. I could hear in the bush something was keeping pace with me. The bush was being thrashed about as if it was chasing me or following me. I cleared the woods and turned to look, and I could see something that had reddish-brown hair all over. It stood very tall, over 8 feet. It had blackened skin along the facial areas that I could see. This incident has haunted me my childhood and adult dreams. The area in which I had seen this creature is now cleared and a subdivision is built upon it. More of this is still very wooded. As a young boy, I hunted these woods often and would smell horrid stench, and often attributed it to a decaying animal. But after the chase, I quickly remembered the smell as it filled the air. I was now looking at this thing that stood there. I remember my father telling me about Bigfoot, and that he had some friends had seen something he could not identify as a boy in Virginia. Okay, very good. There are some commonalities between these sightings. Reddish brown hair, 6, 7, 8 feet tall, man-like creature. All of these along Liberty River area. Fascinating. Class A sightings. So we looked at those along the Trinity area, river area, and very good. Let's move up. Let's follow this river up and see. Kind of looks like it might follow up here. There's another Class A just north of Livingston in Polk County. This is Polk County, Texas, not Polk County, Florida. 1964, witness spots a large, dark, hairy creature standing 50 yards away. Let's have a look at Polk County. (1964), Class A. This is in Livingston County, Livingston, the town, Polk County, Texas. When I was approximately 10 years old, I went with my best friend Doug and his mother to a small cemetery in the big thicket east of Livingston. Doug had a little brother who died at birth and was buried there. His mom asked if we wanted to go with them to visit the grave. Just after she had finished putting the flowers on the grave and saying a little prayer, we were turning to go back to the car when we heard something crash at the edge of the woods behind the cemetery. We looked back and saw a large, dark, hairy creature standing right behind the fence of the cemetery, about 50 yards away. Mrs. Jones screamed, and the creature gave a loud grunt and shuffled back into the woods, kind of a half waddle, half trot. Mrs. Jones told us to get back in the car, which we did. Doug said she never went back to the cemetery again. Well, that's a neat story. I think we'll leave it there for now, and if we have to do 4 parts or even 5 parts to Texas, we'll do that. I'd said 3 parts before, but we covered this fascinating linear reports, along Trinity River. Just really caught my eye, as obviously this area did here, this cluster around this park, this national park, Sam Houston Park.
Hey everyone, welcome to part 3 of the Texas Bigfoot Sightings review. This is GIS Answers, and we'll be looking at Texas today, part 3. Where we left off last was we were looking at the Trinity River area, and there was a linear pattern of Site A, Class A sightings along the river. Today, what I did notice was another linear pattern that seemed to follow along this highway between Livingston, along Highway 190, to Woodville. So we'll have a look at these points, these Bigfoot sightings. Or Class B would be any evidence, such as vocalizations, wood knocks, footprints, or structures, or any other feature that could support the fact that there might be Bigfoot. And we'd already looked at point A, the Class A sighting over by Livingston. That was where we finished off. A witness spots a large, dark, hairy creature standing 50 yards away. This was the one that was at the edge of a cemetery. 2 young boys and a mom, and they were going to visit a grave there, and they saw this creature at the edge of the cemetery, and it took off into the woods, and they never went back. Anyway, we'll take a look here. This is in Polk County again. This is Polk County, Texas, not Polk County, Florida. Class A sighting, March 2005. Teen has sighting through bedroom window. And we'll be flipping back and forth between the BFRO website with the listings and the accounts. Polk County, March 2005. March 2005, Class A sighting along U.S. Highway 190. This is what happened as told to me by my sister-in-law, who lives with my wife and family. On this night, she had my baby daughter in her room with her on the bed, and she was getting up close to the blinds to the window that she said she could see the stars up in the sky that she had noticed earlier that night. As she got up off the bed, she turned to make sure my niece wasn't going to fall from being close to the edge. When she turned back towards the window, she noticed something looking in from outside. It scared her so much that she grabbed her niece and ran out of the room to tell my mother, who was in one of the other rooms of the house. Her mother then called my place of work to have me come over to the house to take a look around. As I first arrived, I noticed there was some kind of bad odor in the area, but as I kept looking around, along with my co-worker, who gave me a ride back to the house, and my mother-in-law, on the east side of the house, where there is no lights, we heard something stepping on twigs or branches laying on the ground, for snapping and breaking noises. As I attempted to walk towards the noise, whatever there was seemed to move further back into the woods, out of reach of my flashlight. After looking around, we went to ask my sister-in-law if she could say who or what she had seen in the window, or she could say that it was big, black, and hairy, and had something in its eyes. She is really talkative all of the time, but after that, she happened to look like she was in shock. Her face was pale, and her eyes seemed like she was lost. Okay, so somebody saw something in the window, and it was big, black, and hairy, and it took off into the woods. And then there was other witnesses that arrived on the scene to check out the outside of the house, and the creature had made its way away from the house, and they could, it sounded like somebody walking in the woods. Very similar accounts to other accounts I've heard, where you hear something in the woods and it sounds like a bipedal creature walking, and and then the smell, the odor of the being too. So quite interesting. So we'll go back to the map, and further down here there's sighting B. Let's have a look at this Lance Rosier Unit, a national park. Okay, so it's just on the edge, and there's also several watercourses in this area, several rivers around this subdivision off Highway 190. So another one down here is a Class B, March 2005, single car accident in the Big Thicket National Preserve. So this sounds interesting. I wonder what this could be. March 2005. It's in Polk County, Highway 190. In March 2005, at approximately 4:30, as reported by an individual called to the scene as part of an emergency response team, an individual was involved in a single car accident on the highway through the Big Thicket National Preserve. Upon arriving on the scene, the response team found the individual still in the car. The car had apparently rolled and ended up in the woods off the highway. The individual reportedly gained consciousness when the team arrived and began to tell them what happened. The individual remembered seeing a dark, upright figure with long hair standing in the middle of the road. The height of the figure could have been anywhere from 5 feet and 8 feet, and certainly bigger than a child. The individual remembered that the figure was facing the car and standing erect. The individual honked the horn, but the figure did not budge. The individual swerved to miss the figure and came as close as 20 feet before veering off the highway and rolling the car. That is the last thing the individual remembered before crashing. So, basically, there was what they're saying is there was a Bigfoot, potentially a Bigfoot, in the road, and the driver of the car swerved and went off the road. So, further information: the individual remembered the faces being fuzzy. The individual completely ruled out a human as a possibility. The figure was bigger than a child, between 5 and 8 feet tall. It was upright, had long hair like a woman. No clothing could be remembered by the individual. The witness was adamant that the figure was not human, but was completely uncertain what it was. So interesting. So we'll follow along this Highway 190, April 2005 in Tyler County. While biking to work, man hears loud animal in the woods. Maybe that's in Polk County. Let's go back and look at Polk. Yes, it's just on the edge of Polk County and Tyler County. April 2005. Highway 190 East. My husband was on his way to work on his bicycle, and there was a long hill he has to ride after Bear Creek. He heard something with heavy steps coming from the left side of the road. My husband stopped and used his flashlight in that area. When he did that, whatever it was started moving back into the woods, and he could hear branches breaking. My husband said he rode his bike so fast, whatever it was scared him. It happened around 5:30 a.m. It was making grunting sounds. We live around 6 miles from his job. He wanted to leave early enough to get to work. Other stories. Yes, my brother lives nearby, and his nieces have seen the Bigfoot. And my brother said he said the scent it leaves smells so bad. This happens first of spring and late fall. It was foggy, 5:30 a.m., wooded. And then there's one right in Woodville. Looks like the center of town. Let's see about this one. Okay, October 2001 in Woodville. A woman sees a Bigfoot in the backyard. Let's have a look. Zoom right in on the Woodville here. So it looks like East Bluff Street. And can't quite make that street out there. Magnolia, maybe. Looks like in that block, but it's like right in the heart of town. October. That one is Tyler County, no doubt about that. In Woodville, woman sees Bigfoot in the backyard. I saw a Bigfoot in my backyard. He stood about 7 to 8 feet tall. It weighed about 800 pounds to 1,000 pounds. It was black and hairy all over, smelled worse than a skunk, had arms like an ape. The creature looked prehistoric. It was very shocking to see and watch a Bigfoot. Most recently, a teenage boy saw a Bigfoot in the same Woodville, Texas area. My son has told me one night something that stunk came close to the house by the bedroom where he was sleeping. Whatever it was moaned and groaned, and he could hear it breathing. My son lives in the same house where I saw the Bigfoot. So if we look down at with more detail on the follow-up investigation, prior to her sighting, the witness was not a believer in Bigfoot. Several months before the sighting, the witness and her son had gone out to feed the goats that they raised. They had noticed that the very young goats had started coming up missing. While they were feeding the goats, they heard a low growl behind them. The growl sounded very close, but they could not see anything. Her first thoughts were the growl came from a big cat. The thought of a Bigfoot never crossed her mind. So it's interesting where a lot of these people, these witnesses, either, they're navigating highways or in towns, and this is where they come into contact with Bigfoot. So that was, initially we looked at Sam Houston National Forest, and then the Liberty River Complex, and then we were looking at this cluster along Highway 190. We'll just continue. Let's see if we can find a few more. Looks like a few more about around this park here. Around the Angelina National Forest. Looks like there's a cluster. So Angelina County, August 1979. Man recalls daytime sighting 30 years ago as a seismic hole driller in Angelina National Forest. So we have to go to Angelina County. I was doing seismic drilling in the Angelina National Forest for several weeks. One late afternoon, in an opening, we decided to stop and take a break on the upper end of the open area in the thick woods. It was quiet when I saw something, large and dark and brownish, stand up and walk away from me. It was about 100 yards away. It walked 20 to 50 feet, then descended into the ravine. It looked to go down on all four legs as it went into the ravine, then it was gone. I thought it was a bear, but chances of seeing a bear in 1979 would be slim. This animal walked on two legs. This only lasted for a few seconds, 10 maybe. I turned to my coworker and asked, "Did you see that?" He said, "Yes." And what the bleep was it? I have thought about this for several years, and in my mind's eye, I can still see the animal walking away from me on this day, 30 years later. The forest was unusually quiet. There was another person, 2 witnesses. The other person was Gary Bird of Alabama. We were together, sitting on our machine, smoking a cigarette. It was mid to late afternoon. It was mainly pine forest with wet oak. That's what I've got for part 3, guys, of the southeast portion of Texas, with some fantastic sightings. Please subscribe to the channel, and I'll continue to do more of the mapping and the encounters.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode. Today what we'll be looking at is an account from a viewer, and it's in Texas. And they say, last year a friend and I were hiking in a North Texas nature preserve where the Trinity Elm Fork River runs through it, and we were hiking after hours. The park was closed. Roughly 1 mile in a wooded area, we saw what looked like a caveman, wild man, had black hair all on his face, and he shielded behind a tree. And as we moved, he would move. shielding behind a tree. I reported it on the Sasquatch website and got the first Sasquatch on the map in the Dallas area. 3 weeks later, they closed the nature preserve for remodeling. It was opened a year later, and the dirt trails where we saw the creature was all overgrown. You couldn't get through the thicket, and they put a Bigfoot sign on the main trail. Okay, so let's go and have a look at this. And I think we're looking in on the ArcGIS. Okay, so we've looked in. I'm zooming in on the Trinity Elm Fork River that goes between Ray Roberts Lake and Louisville Lake, and it's just northeast of Denton, almost east of Denton. I'm trying to find the nature preserve along this river. So I'm going to flip over to Google Maps. There is a Clear Creek Nature Reserve. Let's just put the satellite imagery on. It would be this area looks like it's quite rural, with farmland around the rivers, around this particular river. The Elm Fork Trinity River. I think I said that backwards before. So it's the Elm Fork Trinity River running from the Ray Roberts Lake down to Louisville Lake. As you can see, farmland right up against the river. There is a bit of a riparian zone, a wooded zone along the river, and then larger spots, forested areas. Roads intersecting across the river at various points. We call it a green belt corridor. But let's focus in on, I do believe that this might have been the nature preserve. It's the Clear Creek Nature Heritage Center, and you can see the quite detailed trail network. It must go on for several miles of trails. All right, so let's have a look and see what we find. First of all, we'll have a look at the Google Street View. Yeah, Google Street View. Let's go right in and have a look at this nature preserve. Very nice. A narrow road, just enough for a couple of cars to get by if you were careful. Nicely paved all the way down there. If you're riding a bike or something, it'd be really nice. Little stops along the way so you can access trails. And maybe that's what these people were doing. A couple of people down here late at night. Yeah, really cool. Nice and wooded. You can take these trails all the way to the river. Clear Creek Natural Heritage Center. So let's have a look at some of these photographs. Beautiful trails, marshlands. I'm assuming that's part of the river. Nice trails again. Nice boardwalk over some wetland, some swamp. Vast range of landscapes within this nature preserve. Some different looking trails. This is like a grassland. There's wetlands, forested areas. And different tree structures. Interesting. Again, look, just quite a different landscape. Again, a couple of different structures there. You could see how a wild man or a Bigfoot could potentially be seen here, in this diverse landscape. So different. All these different trees, and there's another structure. Not saying that that was made by Bigfoot, but that's what they're supposedly known for. And we've seen 2 or 3 structures here so far. There's another one. I'm not saying that that's built by Bigfoot. Some kind of footprint there, but hundreds of pictures, beautiful photos. Look at this tree here. Isn't that root system of the tree is quite unique. I mean, it's something that I don't recall ever seeing before, but maybe it's a common thing in Texas. I don't know. This is a kind of almost where I live in Canada. That would be, you know, that would be a typical trail. That's what our trails look like up here where I live. This is not. This is quite unique here. Again, like just such a wide variety of landscapes. Really impressive. Okay, so there you have it. There's a sighting in the Elm Fork Trinity River area, and I'm thinking it was in this Clear Creek Natural Heritage Center. I could be wrong, but I was thinking about the complex trail network and some of the photos at the Clear Creek Natural Heritage Center. Wow, pretty awesome photos and possibly some Sasquatch structures, but nothing to say they weren't made by humans. But anyway, it's a really good account and awesome. Thanks a lot.